let's talk about German sidecars of World War II. Now, these are confusing and a bit of a minefield, especially if you're not German and you've not owned them before. Now, they get confusing because there are different types of bodies. There are thousands and millions of Urals. There are the Chinese Zhangyangs or something I think they're called. They look very similar. It's hard to tell a real one from a fake one, but there are differences, and so I'm going to explain to you the rough evolution of these sidecars. Right, so this is first of all, there are differences in the frames and the bodies. So there are 3 frames types only, and there are 2 types of body. So the frame types are the BW38, denoting the year, so the Beiwagen 1938, the BW40 and the BW43, and then the boats, or boots, whichever you prefer, are the W.Krad B1 and the B2. Okay, so here we have an early BW38 with a W.Krad B1 boot. Now I'm going to explain to you what they are. So let's start with the frames. So the BW38 was the first of the sidecar frames from Zundapp, and it is a torsion bar. So you've got 2 torsion bars going through a central cylinder, which I can show you down here, in there, and you've got the wheel mounted this side, and you've then got the boot mounted on the torsion bars from the other side. So there are 3 torsion bars in this one. You've got one in here that holds the wheel, so you've got some suspension on there, and then you've got 2 torsion bars over there, one for each of the boat arms here. Now, the torsion bars themselves are just long rods with splines on the end, and they rely on a twisting motion to absorb some of the suspension. Now, they're an okay design, but they're expensive to manufacture. They're even more expensive to fix now, because the torsion bars, if you can find them, will cost you at least €100 each, and the splines obviously rust out and whatnot. So this is the BW38. It's quite a boxy frame, you can tell it. So you see the BMW sidecar frame. This is a round tube on the BMW early one. We're talking about the R12. So on the KS600, which is around sort of the same sort of time period in World War II, that would be round, and so the BW38 is the square one. If we look at the back here, underneath, probably, hopefully make out the large tube where the torsion bars go. It's an undriven sidecar, of course. And then down here you have all the box section, again identified by its square box section and its single upper mount here, and the 2 clamshell ball joint mounts down there, one there and one at the front. And the number for these is always printed, stamped rather, down there. So that's the BW38 frame. That's what they look like, and they were replaced in 1940-ish with the BW40 version, which is another torsion bar one, but it's for the driven sidecar of the KS750, and I think it came into service about 1941, but obviously carried the name of the BW40. Now, just quickly on this, we'll go to the boat in a minute, but so this frame goes, and then it takes the W.Krad B2 body. Now this is a W.Krad B1 body, and the quick way to identify this is there are no holes on this side for mounting. It's single mounting sides there for canisters and whatnot. Now if you look at carefully on Ural versions, they will always have this over here, but there are some Ural versions, M72 I think, which are quite similar to this body, and they were copies of the BMW R71 sidecar boat. So look out for those. You can tell them often because this is less square as well. This often you see go along there, but just to confuse you, the early ones are sometimes a bit square, on the Zundapps are a little bit angular across here as well. Now on the W.Krad B1 boat like this, you'll have the flat support bars down the back here, and on the Ural they're curved and spot welded into side, and on the back here easy to change this one, so you only have the 4 mounting holes there and there rather than the 5 on the later version. Boot opens on the B1, and the last thing to notice about the B1 is I'll try and get in there so you can see it, there we go. You notice the sort of hump layout over the back there. Try and get my hand in it here. The shape of that, the tunnel, which takes the rear sidecar frame up into it. Now the BW40, similar looking frame, rounder tube. It's still torsion bar suspension. Outside of that, nothing significant except it's driven, so it has a shaft straight through it. It has the big round section to the rear as well. Now the boat on that one from then onwards is the W.Krad B2. That was fitted in about 1941 through to the end of the war, and you see those on all the BMW R75s, KS750s, and I think they were launched about 1941. Now the W.Krad B2 boot you'll often see is reinforced across here. There's a plate that's welded across there. It appears to be a slightly wider sidecar. It has another set of mounting holes fitted there, and quite frequently you'll see a Stibe logo embedded in an angle around here. Now you can buy those and just cut and weld them in, so occasionally you see that. And there are a few other differences as well. The handle is squarer again, like the original W.Krad B1s, but not the very early versions. The Zundapp versions had just the Zundapp emblem stamped into them if they were manufactured by Zundapp. If they were bought in by Stibe, then you would see the Stibe logo stamped in there. They were also made by BMW and carried the BMW roundel over here, and they were also made by a company called Royal, which I think was from the Netherlands or somewhere in that neck of the woods. They're not very common, those ones, and the Royal ones are usually unstamped as well, and there are a few oddities on that. Occasionally on those you see a Royal BW40, I think it is, which has a few odd anomalies on it. So for instance, it looks like a W.Krad B1, but it's got the welded plates across there at the back. So the BW40 then became the BW43, and the frame was redesigned. It's a round tube frame, sidecar, power driven, third wheel or second wheel, whichever way you like to look at it. It's no longer torsion bar, so the BW43 is a leaf spring frame with the drive shaft at the back. That's the main difference. So just to recap, we've got the BW38, which is a tubular rear with these are frames, of course, the square box girder type frame with the torsion bars. We've then got the BW40, which is a more tubular frame all round, usually with 4 mounts, and still torsion bar. And then you've got the BW43, which is the tubular frame, powered sidecar and leaf springs, and that one is then the one you see more commonly copied onto the Ural type things of today. Now the back to the W.Krad B2, on top of the welded in plates down here, we've also got the boot, which is slightly different. On the W.Krad B1 you can see in here, this is the square section at the back into the boot lid is just I don't know what you call it, but it's just like a hump all the way around it. And on the W.Krad B2, this is actually a raised square stamped panel in a more square fashion, which you'll see if you look carefully at those, and I'll try and stick some pictures up. And then the spare wheel holder is different as well. It's more of a star shape, and it's got an additional bolt top and bottom down there, and there are a few other subtle differences I've already pointed out to the front, the reinforcing and those kind of things. Now the reason this is important, other than from an authenticity point of view, is that you can buy a Ural sidecar or a Russian sidecar for as little as 50 quid, 100 quid maybe, something like that. Not a lot of money at all for a boot. The frame, again, I had one delivered once from Latvia, and it was something like 150 quid including delivery, which is just crazy. So whereas the W.Krad B1 and B2, you're looking at maybe £1,000, £1,500 for a body, and then the same again, maybe 2,000 for a frame for a BW38, and then maybe 2.5 to 3.5 for the BW43. So perhaps overall you're looking at something like 4,000 to 7,000 for a sidecar for a Zundapp or BMW, an original one, compared to perhaps only £150 for the Russian equivalent. So it is quite important to have a good understanding of what the differences are.